In southwest England, a devoted group of surfers gather to ride a unique tidal bore.
There's something that just draws me to every single tide. It's a magical place.
The River Severn is a wonder of the world. People who surf the bore here care for it, love it.
But Britain's rivers are being flooded with plastic waste, manure runoff, and raw sewage.
A lot of my friends get what we call river belly, which isn't very nice, as you can imagine. I mean, I got Weil's disease, and that was pretty dreadful.
You can't play with people's lives with pollution.
The River Severn is the UK's longest river, running 220 miles from mid-Wales into the Bristol Channel. 250 times a year, the tide surges up the estuary, creating a tidal bore, a wave large enough to surf.
Surfing a bore is very different to surfing the sea. In the river, you paddle down to where the tide's going to come in and you surf one wave. We get the largest tides in the UK and one of the largest tides in the world. And it's a journey. You're surfing for 5, 10, 15, 45 minutes. I've surfed, 5 miles through landscapes. It's like a mini adventure.
The bore travels over 20 miles upstream, and at a speed of 10 miles per hour, it means surfers can chase the wave and ride it more than once.
I like the unpredictability of it. If it was the same every time I would come, I wouldn't be interested. From tide to tide, the river can change. In turn, the bore can change. So it's always testing you.
It's lovely being in the river. It's just, you're away from everything, and then the wave comes and then your mind goes away from everything. It's like meditation. It's gorgeous. There's a very close-knit community around the Severn Bore. You have no option but to share it. And to share it, you have to get on. You've got to be friendly and you've got to enjoy the company. They're so involved in the river and love the river. They care about the river a lot.
To see the Severn Bore coming up, in the early morning through the mist, it is quite ethereal, really. We don't call it the Bore, we call it Sabrina, after the Roman goddess.
I sleep in my car, do the 2 tides a day, evening and mornings, and that's all I do. I like just immersing myself in the whole thing for a few days.
What I've learned through being on the river and other rivers is the amount of nature and wildlife that revolves and thrives off tidal rivers. So you see hares, you see owls, you see everything. It's just phenomenal. I mean, that's what got me into caring for rivers so much. I mean, the amount I use them.
The Severn Estuary is of international importance for its wintering bird assemblage. We have some really rare species here, like the critically endangered European eel. It's really, really important, but it's also really threatened.
The state of our rivers at the moment in terms of pollution is pretty bad. There is the big problem of plastic.
Today we've been doing a litter pick with members of the Severn Vale Catchment-Based Approach Partnership, who are a group of over 100 people from various different organisations, voluntary groups. We've got environmental organisations, wildlife charities, who are all working together to try and make the Severn better for people and for wildlife.
Here's some of the random crazy things you get, like a Henry the Hoover, or copy of, shall we say.
It's a big problem and it needs a big solution. So we're aware that we can't work on this in isolation. We really need to use the different skills and experiences we've got from different organisations and come together and work collaboratively on this.
But plastic waste is just one of the challenges facing Britain's rivers. In 2022, water companies recorded over 2,200 sewage discharges into the River Severn.
I know any tidal water is not clean because the way the rivers are used. I mean, rivers are abused. We use them as our gutters, basically. This is going into the River Severn. Yeah, I mean, it's quite shocking, isn't it?
I don't know what to say, really.
You get local sewage plants on estuaries, and when the tides come up and they're receding, they let the pollution out and it goes out to sea.
You also get industrial sewage. Like when I surfed the Nith, there was 2 of those silos on the Nith, and it was purely sewage from one plant, and that was a mixture of treated chemical wastes, toilet waste, and runoff. I don't stop caring, but it doesn't shock me. It's sad that it doesn't shock me, but it doesn't because I see it so much. You get farm sewage. In the winter, when you've got all the runoff off the farms, that's probably the worst time, actually.
Earlier in the year, there was some effluent off-flow from one of the farms, and it just stained the whole river. And it was that obvious, it was black.
If you get dunked, something like that, if you don't wash your hands, and then the next day, then you
Get ill.
A lot of my friends get what we call river belly, which isn't very nice, as you can imagine.
I've had stomach bugs a number of times,
I got Viles disease, and that was pretty dreadful.
but over the past few years I haven't, but that's not because the rivers are cleaner, it's because I just don't.
Dumped my head under the water.
The number of surfers who've come out feeling unwell, me being one of them some years ago, and that's really not on. You know, you can't play with people's lives with pollution.
A lot of people look at the Severn and say it's a disgusting river, but it's not. It's full of life. It's a beautiful river. We need to care for rivers because they're the lungs of our country. You know, we have a phenomenal amount of rivers, and a large number of them are tidal. Our sewage infrastructure is controlled by the government and large water companies, and they're the only people that can make the changes. The biggest thing we can do is petition and just be aware and make the biggest noise, really.
And if people around the UK are aware of what's happening, which they are now, then things get done because the right people are put in power to make the changes. I'd love to be able to go into the river and not find plastic littered on the banks. I'd love to be able to stick my head under the water and not know that I'm going to wake up in the morning and spend the day either on the toilet. I'd love to see our rivers become a natural haven for wildlife and for people to be able to use them and appreciate them.
This river has a future. We as surfers have a future, and river surfing has a future. Put pressure on the politicians, put pressure on the local parish councils, put pressure on the water boards and say, I've just seen this in the river, do something about it.